Yeah, as I was saying, welcome to today's session on what it takes to get into Stanford. All right, so today's agenda, we're first going to be discussing an introduction to Stanford, then we're going to be talking about Stanford views and application, after which we're going to discuss financial aid packages, then the common data set about Stanford, and then lastly, we're going to conclude with what can be taken from this, after which we're going to have a short Q&A session. All right, so let me give you an introduction of Stanford University. So it's a private land-grant research university in Stanford, California. It's been established in 1885, and it's one of the most prestigious and highly ranked teaching and research institutions worldwide. And you all probably know this already. It's also known for its academic freedom, great return on investment, and its entrepreneurial student body. Now, as for research, Stanford allocates more than $5.9 million to support undergraduate research each year. There are over 30 departments and programs, and the grant program supports faculty in their research with undergraduates. In addition, there's also honors programs that offer more advanced research opportunities. So Stanford curriculum is designed with flexibility to provide students the opportunity to explore courses across disciplines. So Stanford is very big on that too. All right, so let's talk about some well-known majors. So here are some of the most widely recognized and popular majors at Stanford. The first one, no surprise, is computer science, after which you have management science and engineering, followed by symbolic systems, economics, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, mathematics, human biology, political science, and international relations.
So what exactly does it take to get into Stanford? Stanford, as we were saying, is a really competitive college with an average acceptance rate of about 3.9%. It has a regular decision rate of 4% and an early application acceptance rate of 4.73%, which means the sooner you apply, or like the earlier you apply, the more likelihood you have a chance of getting in. And Stanford relies on multiple things, including GPA, standardized test scores unlike the UC's, course load difficulty, extracurriculars, letters of recommendations, and personal statements alike. So as I was saying, Stanford also requires standardized test scores. So these are some of the averages of the SAT and ACT scores. So you should be aiming for about the average for a Stanford applicant, which for math for the SAT is a 770, reading and writing 735, making like a compositive score about 1505 for the average Stanford applicant. And likewise for the ACT, a average Stanford applicant should have a score of about 35. And for yeah, these are your average scores. And as for the standardized testing, Stanford, unlike the UC's, has not changed its policy. They still will require standardized tests, and it will be a crucial factor for admission. So, Stanford reviews their application holistically. So, which means they look for things like aligning with the school's mission, the spirit of cooperation and collaboration, taking initiatives, not being scared to take risks, about balancing priorities, and really embodying the Stanford community and being passionate about what you plan on pursuing in university and further beyond.
Okay, so now we'll talk really quickly about the required application components. So Stanford has four major applications, like components in the application. So one is a common app. So you can get that through the Stanford portal and everything. And then the ACT or SAT, which is required for these next few years. Stanford really hasn't given out a set deadline or a set criteria as for if they'll mandate the SAT or ACT starting the 2024 cycle or 2025 or whatever, unlike Harvard or MIT, where MIT requires it starting 2024 and Harvard is optional till 2026. So Stanford is still test optional as for now, but there is no really big news from Stanford saying that, okay, we either require it or we're no longer accepting it or whatever it is. Another thing with Stanford is you need a counselor letter of rec. So either a counselor letter of rec along with your school report form. So like they give you like your school criterias, what type of school are you, and like all that stuff. And then there's a transcript, your high school transcript, your GPA, all that stuff, AP exams, all that good stuff. Alongside that, you need 2 recommendation letters. So depending on your major, you can apply whichever. Generally, if you're applying for a STEM, you want 1 STEM and 1 non-STEM letter of rec. And then Stanford also considers almost all, or they consider all 4 years. So freshman, sophomore, junior, and even part of your senior year. So they do check your senior year transcript. So if you're goofing off, in your senior year, that's Stanford will look at those scores and those grades. Going from there, Stanford really has, like I already mentioned, no set criteria for standardized testing in 2024. They have remained test optional, but this news is coming from the Stanford website, right? But of course, Stanford hasn't said anything for the past or the next few years. They might require it, they might not require it. So depending on what they go through this cycle, what they go through next cycle, they will figure out whether they want to either keep the standardized testing, remove it completely, or remain test optional. And here's a quick YouTube video explaining what Stanford is going through and how they came up to these decisions. Okay, as for financial aid at Stanford, Stanford has a few different types of financial aid, one being university scholarships. So there's a few different types of ways you can earn scholarships. Majority of the people get them through applying to scholarships at Stanford, whether it be through writing essay competitions or maybe doing a competition or a project that receives a scholarship. And then on top of that, there is also Stanford grants. Like Stanford has its own grants where, for example, if a student needs some amount of money, they will give the grant or they'll give money to the student through the Stanford grant. Alongside that, they have federal and state grants. So federal and state are like FAFSA. If you all know what that is, so FAFSA is like the government-based grants given to students for just for free tuition or money, in that sense. In addition to that, there is student employment, where students can work on campus to earn a set amount of money, or just take that money towards their tuition. While that is all available on campus, also outside opportunities as well. One of them being private scholarships. So you can apply to, let's just say, for example, a very good platform is Niche, Niche, niche.com. They have a lot of different scholarships with a bunch of different articles, essays, competitions, raffles, all that stuff. And they provide a bunch of scholarships. So although this is a private scholarship, you can still use that into Stanford and still get that money back for tuition. That being said, there's also loans. A lot of students do tend to take student loans to pay off their student tuition. Of course, depends on your financial need, depends on financial basis, how many loans you need, or is it really worth getting that much those loans? So this is where like consideration is like, well, you have to take into consideration your financial like aspect right now. How well are you financially? Are you even able to pay for the expenses at Stanford? Because if you really think about it, Stanford and all these other schools have not just the tuition fees, they also have the healthcare, the dorm fees, the food fees, all that stuff. And it turns out to be a lot of money. So you have to be very careful in which college you choose. Stanford is an expensive college, but then again, it provides a lot of financial aid as well. So if you take loans, that's just a quick like disclaimer. You should be very considerate about how many loans you take and what you really need to do as well. And here's the Stanford Financial Aid website where you can put in, or you can plug in your current funding, whatever you have, whether it be your income, your yearly income, your stocks, your portfolios, other sources of income, how many kids, how many members are in your household, all that good stuff. And it'll plug in and it'll provide you the total amount of your admission fee if you were to get into Stanford, and how much tuition or like how much financial aid you would get as well. Okay. As for financial aid process, so scholarships are solely based on financial needs, especially for Stanford. Stanford does review your application need blind, so they don't really look into what your financial like stability is, how well you are set financially when they're reviewing your application. Rather, what they do is they don't even look at the numbers you have, just your application. And then once you're either admitted or rejected, if you're admitted and you can't pay for the tuition fees, they will give you scholarships and they will give you financial aid based on how much you need. That being said, Stanford, beyond the Stanford scholarships, many other scholarships are given from government, private sources, as well as athletic scholarships. That's something that a lot of people forget. But oftentimes athletes get a lot of scholarships from the particular college you're going to, and Stanford is another one of those cases. And of course, many more private and government scholarships are available online. And here's just one like info. You can just click on this. There'll be more information about scholarships at Stanford, scholarships at different other colleges, and how the financial need or financial aid is given out. So sure, you want to talk about this?
All right. Yeah. So now we're going to be talking about what exactly you can gain from this session. So overall, this is like a general summary. When applying to a college like Stanford, it is crucial that the students have a very strong academic career. So you have to have a good GPA. If this is not the case, they do have a place where you can explain why your grades were not the best. Maybe you had like a hard teacher or something, or maybe like it wasn't a very good year for you because you had other stuff going on. Maybe a family member close to you died or something. But it is important that you explain why you're not maybe doing the best academically. And you have to try to balance this out with a strong ACT or SAT score, and definitely with some extracurriculars as well. Now, regarding extracurriculars, you have to try to stay focused on certain extracurriculars more deeply rather than just branching out into multiple. And these should generally be related to what you're planning on majoring in, and definitely try to achieve leadership positions if you've been in it for a long time, because it shows like how you've grown since you've joined that particular extracurricular. You can also be doing passion projects or research. Trying to create research or conducting a passion project really shows Stanford or any other private colleges that you're interested in a particular major and you're trying to research or conduct a passion project that further shows your interest in that field, is going beyond just like reading about it or something, but actually doing hands-on work, and shows that you're really dedicated. Also, finally, you should try to show your personality in your supplementals and briefly show why you are a good fit for the college. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So now we can actually transition to any questions you have. We really decided to keep our presentation very short today because there are a lot of questions. I would assume that there are a lot of questions regarding such a prestigious college. I also wanted to talk about a few different things. Roughly 2-3 years ago, we invited Stanford admission officer to come speak for us, and he provided a very useful presentation on how Stanford admits and what they look into in their admissions process. So if you want to check out what happened or like what type of questions were asked, what type of answers the admission officer provided, feel free to look at our master doc where we have a document where for Q&A for the particular Stanford admission officer. His name is Latif Legend, so we'll provide that Q&A doc as well at the end of the session. That being said, we can transition into the Q&A.